Mrs. Bauer. I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about nonfiction and fiction books and to decide what the author's purpose is. Take a look at the books that are on this page. Poison Dart Frogs, Frogs and Toads, Red-Eyed Tree Frogs, Tadpoles to Frogs, Frogs, and Tricky Tree Frogs. You might look at this one and say, because the pictures are not realistic and that they're not a photograph, it might be a fiction book with make-believe. But if I look really close, I can see that those pictures are actually showing frogs doing real things. So let's take a look inside the book to make sure what kind of book this is, fiction or nonfiction. I'd like for you to ask yourself, what is the author's purpose for writing this book? Enjoy!
A jelly-like cluster of eggs floats among the water weeds at the pond's surface. These eggs are the beginning of Frogs by Gail Gibbons. Read by Christina Moore. The words in this book are found in two places. They appear at the bottom of the page under each illustration, and sometimes in the illustration itself. I will read the words at the bottom of the page first, and then any words in the illustration above. Now, turn to the first page of the story. A breeze ripples the surface. The floating clump of eggs is called frog spawn. Frogs lay their eggs in water or wet places. Otherwise, the eggs could dry up and die. Frog spawn. These eggs do not have shells. They are inside jelly-like coverings. As they float, the jelly lets the sun's warmth come through to the eggs inside. Not all the eggs will survive. Egg. Most of the time, the large and slimy mass of eggs is too slippery and too big to be eaten. This is nature's way of protecting them. But some of the smaller clusters of eggs will be eaten by creatures living in or near the pond. The dark centers of the eggs slowly grow into frog embryos. The embryos grow until they look like small tadpoles. Tadpoles are frog babies. As they grow, they feed off their own egg yolks. Embryo. The tadpoles grow until they are big enough to break free into the water. It can take from 3 days to 3 weeks for this to happen, depending on what kind of frogs they will become. Tadpole. One by one, the tadpoles hatch from their eggs. They each have a head, tail, and body. The tadpoles wiggle their tails to swim.
I'd like for you to take a close look at the pictures, the illustrations on these two pages. There are words with lines. If you can remember from class, those are called labels. A label is a text feature that gives us a clue that the text is nonfiction, that the nonfiction is trying to teach us facts. Are you learning some facts about frogs?
Head, tail, body. The tadpoles breathe by getting air from the water through feathery outside gills. As they swim, they eat very small plants that stick to larger water plants. These tiny plants are called algae. Gills. Algae. One week later, the tadpoles look different. They are bigger. Their gills begin to shrink. A flap of skin slowly grows over them. The tadpoles' mouths become hard, with tiny teeth in their upper jaws. Now, the tadpoles are 1 month old. Their outside gills have disappeared. New gills inside the tadpoles take oxygen from the water. Their tails are wider for stronger swimming. Something wonderful begins to happen. At the base of their tails, bulges appear. This is where their hind frog legs are growing.
On the second page, which word from the text could be used as a special learning word? What word could be a vocabulary word in the back of the book in the glossary? What would you pick? Did you pick bulge or bulges? That would be a really good choice to put in the glossary. The glossary is also a text feature that would show us that this book is a nonfiction book. It would give us the definition of bulge. We could use context clues from this passage to help us understand what the word bulge is. We could also use the picture clue and diagram to learn that a bulge is where the hind legs of the frog will grow and it will create a pouch or a bump on the outside of the tadpole.
Bulge. At 2 months old, the tadpoles dart about the pond as they eat. They are still vegetarians. Vegetarians only eat plant life. The tadpoles get bigger. Now they have hind legs. Behind their heads, bulges appear where their front legs are growing. Hind legs. Bulge. Their tails become smaller. The tadpoles' gills inside their bodies are gone. They have grown lungs to use for breathing. Now and then, they wiggle to the surface to breathe in air.